I know she wants to be out here on the floor, and we want her out here on the floor, but making sure that she's ready is the most important thing. I still don't know how far we are. We're going to take it one step at a time, one day at a time, and go from there.
Caitlin Clark, right? Like, she's lightening things up. She's probably made more in NIL money, or could potentially make more. We saw you about to throw that, but I think it's just like kind of a learning process. The money in the WNBA is non-existent.
Right.
Right. But she could change that. Your two Iowa teams left a mark on women's college basketball, but also women's basketball at large. Is that kind of crazy to think about? Like, you were a part of something that was a catalyst for this larger group? I had heard about this Caitlin Clark, and I was watching videos of her just having 40 points. There has been discussion online about internal conversations within the Indiana organization. While nothing has been confirmed publicly, some observers believe there may have been high-level discussions about direction, control, investment, and how a franchise plans to protect its most important asset. When conversations like this start circulating, they often reflect patterns people feel but can't yet prove. The stretches where decisions stop matching logic, the moments where the team's identity seems to flicker between competing agendas, the way a player's responsibilities shift without a public explanation to match it. At the center of it all is Caitlin Clark, because with a player like that, the conversation stops being purely basketball. She's ratings, she's ticket demand, she's merchandise, she's national television windows, she's partnerships that want stability, not experimentation. When that kind of value enters a building, the building changes. Coaches adjust, executives get involved. Ownership starts asking questions like who this team is really being built around. Caitlin Clark received 1.29 million All-Star votes. When leadership views a player as the face of a franchise, decisions can shift from coaching preference to broader organizational direction. The Indiana Fever operate under Pacers Sports and Entertainment, connected to the Simon family. Herb Simon is the public name most people recognize. Many observers point to Steve Simon as being closely associated with the organization's direction and long-term strategy. In sports, conversations usually focus on coaches, schemes, player development, locker room chemistry. But in ownership-driven organizations, there are also revenue projections, sponsor commitments, sponsor expectations, and preferences for stability when stakes are high. Ownership does not have to be loud to influence direction. Caitlin Clark's arrival in Indiana changed the economic gravity of the franchise. Ticket demand increased, broadcast interest rose, merchandise activity expanded. Once that happens, valuation can extend beyond wins and losses to whether a franchise is maximizing a rare opportunity. Her game is exportable. The deep range, the quick trigger confidence, the shots people replay and try in driveways. That style turns into audience growth, sponsor interest, and national attention. At times, the offense began to look different. The pace felt more controlled. The risk level appeared lower. Some fans viewed it as maturity. Others saw it as limiting the most explosive part of the team's identity. Questions emerged. Why does it look harder for her to play freely? Why does the rhythm feel slower? Why does it seem like the system is asking her to fit in rather than amplifying what makes her unique? Stephanie White's coaching identity emphasizes structure, spacing, reads, and connectivity. That approach can raise a team's floor and reduce chaos. But systems designed for balance can sometimes minimize.
I mean, he loves basketball. Like I've said this before, even if we're playing on the road or, there's a couple games he maybe can't see in person, he's always got it on. But I know even our game, he didn't really know that it was at noon a couple of days ago, and he had a conflict, and he made sure to move the meeting that he had to be able to be here and support us. And he certainly just loves the Fever, and he loves this state, and, that's very evident in everything that he does and the way he approaches the people in this community. So we're very lucky and fortunate.
Claims about high-level meetings involving coaching staff and executives. None of this has been publicly confirmed. The allegation suggests a discussion about building the franchise clearly around Clark as the central focal point moving forward. If such a discussion occurred, it would reflect a broader organizational priority rather than a tactical adjustment. In modern sports, certain players function as platforms. They influence television windows, sponsorships, league marketing, and attention itself. The speculation also includes the idea of internal disagreement over how much to reorient the system around one player. Again, none of this has been confirmed. Public comments from the coaching staff have emphasized balance, teamwork, and shared responsibility. This raises a broader question, seen often in professional sports: how organizations balance coaching autonomy with ownership priorities when brand value is involved. Strip it down, and incentives become clearer. Ownership evaluates gate receipts, media value, sponsor commitments, and overall franchise growth. When a player significantly impacts those factors, leadership may focus on protecting and maximizing that impact. None of this has been confirmed publicly. It remains discussion and speculation. But the broader theme is the intersection of basketball decisions and business decisions. When a franchise grows into a national product, evaluation expands beyond the court. Caitlin Clark's impact in Indiana extends beyond her stat line. She shifted visibility, attention, and conversation. In environments like that, organizational priorities can evolve. If leadership believes Clark represents the clearest path to long-term growth, then structural decisions may reflect that belief. Coaches focus on systems. Ownership focuses on sustainability and return. The situation ultimately reflects a common professional sports tension: control of direction when competitive philosophy and business priorities intersect. What happens next depends on alignment within the organization. What makes situations like this complicated is that alignment inside a professional franchise is rarely visible from the outside. Public statements are measured. Press conferences are careful. Language is chosen deliberately. That does not automatically mean something is wrong. It simply means organizations understand how narratives shape perception. When a team carries a player whose presence impacts national conversation, the internal margin for error becomes smaller. Every substitution pattern gets analyzed. Every late-game possession becomes symbolic. A single turnover can feel larger than it actually is because it is filtered through the larger conversation about direction. Caitlin Clark's transition to the WNBA was always going to involve adjustment. The speed is different. The physicality is different. Defensive schemes are tighter. Veterans test rookies in ways that don't show up in box scores. That part is normal. What is less normal is adjusting while also carrying the economic expectations of a franchise. There is a difference between developing a talented rookie and developing a national draw. When those two roles overlap, evaluation becomes layered. A coaching staff might prioritize long-term efficiency. Ownership might prioritize maintaining visibility. Neither goal is inherently wrong. The tension appears when timelines feel different. Some stretches of the season showed Clark operating within tighter structure, more half-court sets, more deliberate reads, fewer early clock attempts from extended range. That shift can reflect growth. It can reflect coaching emphasis. It can reflect matchup strategy. Interpretation depends on perspective. From a purely basketball standpoint, structure often stabilizes young teams. Controlled pace reduces transition turnovers. Defined roles increase accountability. Veterans tend to prefer predictability. Coaches often build trust through consistency, but star-driven leagues have a different dynamic. Certain players bend systems instead of fitting into them. The question becomes whether you design the framework around the star's instincts or teach the star to optimize inside the framework. That debate is not unique to Indiana. It is played out across sports history. When a generational talent enters a stable system, friction can surface. Not necessarily personal friction, but philosophical friction. Do you protect the system or do you stretch it? Clark's shooting range is not just a skill, it's a pressure point on defenses. It forces coverage decisions earlier in possessions. It shifts help responsibilities. It expands spacing geometry. When she shoots freely, it alters defensive behavior even when the shot doesn't fall. If that element is moderated, the game can look more conventional. That doesn't automatically mean worse. It simply changes the texture. The entertainment layer and the tactical layer are not always identical.
Observers who focus on metrics might point to efficiency trends, assist-to-turnover ratios, lineup net ratings. Observers focused on momentum might point to highlight frequency, crowd noise, social engagement. Both are measuring impact, just in different currencies. Inside ownership rooms, currency usually means sustainability. Short-term spikes are valuable, but stability matters more. The question becomes whether volatility increases or decreases long-term value. If a franchise believes a player represents long-term brand architecture, decisions may shift accordingly. Marketing campaigns align, community outreach aligns, media positioning aligns. The basketball product can become part of a broader strategic presentation. None of this requires internal conflict to exist. Alignment can evolve naturally. However, when external speculation fills information gaps, every routine adjustment can look intentional. There were games where Clark's usage fluctuated, games where Mitchell closed possessions, games where front court touches increased. That can reflect opponent scouting reports. It can reflect hot hand decisions. It can reflect internal emphasis on balance. Balance itself is not a negative. Balanced offenses are harder to predict. They prevent defensive overload on a single player. They distribute fatigue across a roster. At the same time, leagues often market faces, not systems. National broadcasts frame narratives around individuals. Casual viewers tune in for recognizable names. That reality influences how franchises are perceived externally. The WNBA as a league is also navigating growth. Increased visibility, expanded media coverage, and broader sponsorship engagement create new layers of scrutiny. When one player becomes a symbolic figure of that growth, conversations intensify. Clark's college career amplified expectations. Deep tournament runs, long-range shooting displays, record-breaking scoring nights. That foundation shaped how professional adaptation would be interpreted. Early professional struggles were expected by many analysts. Defensive pressure at this level is consistent. Physical matchups are stronger. Help rotations close faster. The margin for clean pull-ups shrinks. Development in that environment can look uneven. One night explosive, one night contained. That variance is typical for rookies, especially primary ball handlers. The larger conversation attaches meaning to that variance. If a high-scoring night follows a stretch of structured offense, some interpret it as freedom. If scoring dips during controlled sets, some interpret it as limitation. Inside the team environment, the conversation is likely more practical. How do we win tonight? What coverage are we facing? Who has the matchup advantage? Which rotation combination stabilizes defensive rebounding? Basketball decisions often look philosophical from distance, but are situational up close. Still, the broader question remains relevant. How does a franchise balance maximizing a unique player while preserving competitive integrity across the roster? Teammates matter in this equation. Veterans who have built careers inside the league carry pride and expectations. Integrating a highly visible rookie into that ecosystem requires communication and shared accountability. Coaches mediate that integration. They manage roles, personalities, and performance. Authority matters in that process. Clear hierarchy simplifies messaging. Ownership, meanwhile, evaluates trajectory. Are attendance figures sustaining? Are partnerships expanding? Is national interest translating into durable engagement? Those evaluations occur whether or not internal conflict exists. When a player influences those numbers significantly, strategic conversations naturally expand. That does not automatically override coaching autonomy. It can simply increase dialogue between departments. Professional sports organizations function as layered structures: basketball operations, business operations, media relations, marketing, ownership oversight. Alignment requires constant adjustment. Speculation tends to compress complexity into conflict. Reality is often slower and more procedural. Clark herself has publicly framed adjustments as part of learning: growth language, patience language, competitive language. That tone suggests awareness of process. Teammates have emphasized collective goals. Coaching staff has emphasized development and defensive improvement. Public messaging across levels has remained measured. The intensity of online discussion reflects the scale of attention, not necessarily